Part 4. White Woman, Black Man. The Allegory of the Black Eunuchs. I sat down to eat my beans at a table for four with two of my contemporaries, young, strong, superlative black eunuchs in the prime. Soon after we were seated, an old fat Lazarus with sleek, grayish hair that had been artificially straightened and a jolly, ebullient smile which made him resemble a chocolate Santa Claus, invited himself over to our table and sat down in the chair opposite me. I exchanged glances with my contemporaries. Ironical smiles lit our black faces, while an intenser fire blazed in our eyes as we scrutinized this Lazarus interloper. A few minutes passed in silence. My contemporaries and we had a thing going about elderly Negroes like this one sitting opposite from me. There was something in his style, the way he carried himself, that we held in contempt. We had written down as an Uncle Tom. Not that we had ever seen him buck dancing or licking the white man's boots, but we knew that black rebels his age do not walk the streets in America. They were either dead, in prison, or in exile in another country. Or else, and this is how we sized this one up, they had turned into a type of fake that proliferates in the Negro ghetto. Not a passive resistor, and he wasn't nonviolent. He was death on another black. And although the white man had ripped off his whole existence, his whole race, he was always talking about what he would do if the white man ever did something to him personally. If talk alone could overthrow a government, he would be in power. From a certain point of view, we hated this black. But in a subtle way, we were fascinated by the curious terms at which he had arrived with the world. Just then, and with no apparent provocation, the young eunuch on my left said, pounding his fist on the table for emphasis, "Oh, Lazarus, why come you not dead?" "What?" asked the infidel, startled more by the suddenness of the question and the menacing tone in which it was hurled at him than by the question itself. After all, his entire generation was being asked the same question in a million different guises. Charlie Parker asked Lester Young. Dizzy Gillespie asked Louis Armstrong. Mao Tse-tung asked Chiang Kai-shek. Fidel Castro asked Batista. Malcolm X asked Martin Luther King. Robert F. Williams asked Roy Wilkins. Norman Mailer asked the totalitarian squares. The question sank in slowly, and as it did, his Santa Claus smile dissolved with a hint of panic into a twitch at the left corner of his fat mouth. His dark, beady eyes darted from face to face. "I asked you, why aren't you dead?" repeated the eunuch on my left. "Why should I be dead? I don't If you had laid down your life," the eunuch cut him off, "at least we could respect you. At least we could say you were a man, a great man. At least we could point to your grave as a sign, a standard, with pride, with reverence. But no, you cringing cunctator, you dared to cling to your miserable life, to grow old and gray and fat and funky." The accuser broke off and started eating his beans with a vengeance, as though each bean were a white man, and he downed them by the spoonful. "What's wrong with this cat today?" asked the accused, his face screwed up in nervous bafflement. "He's sick," I offered, to see how the infidel would take it. "He must be sick," said the accused, stirring his coffee uncertainly. "All this stupid talk about death and dying." "Yes, I'm sick," erupted the accuser, almost choking, talking through his beans. "You make me sick, Methuselah. What are you trying to do, win a longevity contest? How did you get that gray hair? How did you manage to survive? Yeah, I'm sick, sick, sick." "I'm sick too," said the eunuch on my right, speaking for the first time. "I'm sick, sick, sick." "I'm sick too," I said. "What's the name of this game?" asked Lazarus, trying to inject a note of levity on the sly. "This is a new one on me." It was a cruel thing we were doing, and we knew it because we had done it before to others. In one sense, we were only playing with him, probing him, examining him, studying him. But on another level, we were deadly serious. The Lazarus, detecting the ambiguity, was confused. "Do you know the difference between a gorilla and a gorilla?" the eunuch on my right asked the accused. The accused appeared to be contemplating an answer. "I'll make it easy for you," the eunuch said. "You're a gorilla, and a gorilla is everything you are not." The accused opened his mouth to reply, but the eunuch on my left, who had cast the first stone, cut him off. "A gorilla is a man," he snapped, his eyes flashing, "but you're some kind of freak." A self-searching, inward-looking silence ensued. One thought of blood and guns and knives, whips, ropes, and chains, and trees, screams, night riders, fear, nightsticks, police dogs and fire hoses, fire, wounds and bombs, old women in pain and young women defiled, lies, jeers, little boys frozen in their first heat, and young men de-studded and old men burnt out, little girls psychically vitiated and physically massacred. After a while, I asked the accused in a neutral voice, "Have you ever hit a black woman?" As if his switch had been flipped, his eyes lit up, and anxious for what in his death he took to be a change of subject, the Lazarus took the bait. The twinkle in his eye turned evil as he leaned across the table and said in a confidential way, "I wish I had a nickel for every bitch whose ass I put my foot in. I'd be so rich right now that you lames would have to put in your request 6 months in advance just to get to see me, let alone sit down at the same table with me." "A home run slash at your neck with a scimitar is a solution to all your problems, Lazarus," hissed the accuser, the eunuch on my left, his lips trembling with rage. "What do you mean by that?" asked the accused, affecting not to have understood. "He means what I mean," said the eunuch on my right, "that for 400 years you have had the fear of the slave master in you, but now it's time for you to know the fear of your own kind." Snorted the accused, and he took a spoonful of beans into his mouth, chewing them absently. He resumed talking after a few moments. Black women take kindness for weakness. Leave them the least little opening and they will put you on the cross. I hate a black bitch. You can't trust them like white women, and if you try to, they won't appreciate it, and they won't know how to act. It would be like trying to pamper a cobra. Anyway, every black woman secretly hates black men. Secretly, they all love white men. Some of them will tell you to your face. The others will tell you by their deeds and actions. Haven't you ever noticed that just as soon as a black woman becomes successful, she marries a white man? I'm going by what I know. I know one black bitch who always says that there ain't nothing a black man can do for her except leave her alone or bring her a message from or carry a message to a white man. There's no love left between a black man and a black woman. Take me for instance. I love white women and hate black women. It's just in me, so deep that I don't even try to get it out of me anymore. I jump over 10 nigger bitches just to get to one white woman. Ain't no such thing as an ugly white woman. A white woman is beautiful even if she's bald-headed and only has one tooth. It's not just the fact that she's a woman that I love her skin, her soft, smooth, white skin. I like to just lick her white skin as it sweet, fresh honey flows from her pores, and just to touch her long, soft, silky hair. There's a softness about a white woman, something delicate and soft inside her. But a nigger bitch seems to be full of steel, granite hard and resistant, not soft and submissive like a white woman. Ain't nothing more beautiful than a white woman's hair being blown by the wind. The white woman is more than a woman to me. She's like a goddess, a symbol. My love for her is religious and beyond fulfillment. I worship her. I love a white woman's dirty drawers. Sometimes I think that the way I feel about white women, I must have inherited from my father, and his father, and his father's father, as far back as you can go into slavery. I must have inherited from all those black men part of my desire for the white woman, because I have more love for her than one man should have. Yes, I want all the white women that they wanted, but were never able to get. They passed on their desire to me. They must have. Desire for the white woman is like a cancer eating my heart out and devouring my brain. In my dreams, I see white women jumping over a fence like dainty little lambs, and every time one of them jumps over, her hair just catches the breeze and splays out behind her like a mane on a palomino stallion. Blondes, redheads, brunettes, strawberry blondes, dirty blondes, drugstore blondes, platinum blondes, all of them. They are the things of my nightmares. Does all this sound like I'm making it up, young blood? He nodded at me. He was asking me. I took my time about answering. I would have preferred to remain silent. I said, "Why should you lie to us? I mean, no one can be completely true in all that they say, and you give me the impression of, well, taking off the top of your head." He was laughing inside. I could see it in his eyes. Then he said, "Well, I've thought about it for years. You have to try to understand what's bugging you, you know? But really, I don't believe that I understand anything about anything, when you get right down to it. But I'm stuck with myself, and I accept my own thoughts about things. For instance, I don't know just how it works. I mean, I can't analyze it, but I know that the white man made the black woman the symbol of slavery, and the white woman the symbol of freedom. Every time I embrace a black woman, I'm embracing slavery. And when I put my arms around a white woman, well, I'm hugging freedom. The white man forbade me to have the white woman on pain of death. Literally, if I touched a white woman, it would cost me my life. Men die for freedom, but black men die for white women, who are the symbol of freedom. That was the white man's will, and as long as he has the power to enforce his will upon me, force me to submit to his will in this instance or in any other, I will not be free. I will not be free until the day I can have a white woman in my bed and a white man minds his own business. Until that day comes, my entire existence is tainted, poisoned, and I will still be a slave, and so will the white women. You may not believe this. When I off a nigga bitch, I close my eyes and concentrate real hard, and pretty soon I get to believing that I'm riding one of them bucking blondes. I tell you the truth, that's the only way that I can bust my nuts with the black bitch. Close my eyes and pretend that she is Jezebel. If I was to look down and see a black bitch underneath me, or if my hand happened to feel her nappy hair, that would be the end. It would be all over. I might as well get up and split, because I wouldn't be able to get anything down, even if I piled her all night long. Any black man who says he doesn't dig Jezebel is a goddamn liar. I believe that if a leader wanted to unite the Negroes in solid unity, he could do so very easily. All he'd have to do is promise every black man a white woman, and every black woman a white man. He would have so many followers that he wouldn't know what to do with them all. Believe me. I'm going to tell you three young bloods something that I don't like to talk about. I don't like to talk about none of this shit. You cats are sitting here all puffed up. You think you got a hell of a thing going for yourselves, but you don't really know anything about yourselves, or about your women, or about white people. You probably won't believe what I tell you. It rubs your ego the wrong way, but I'm going to tell you anyway. The Lazarus paused and squirmed around his chair, as though trying to get a better grip on it with his rump. When he spoke again, there was a tremor in his voice. He who worships the Virgin Mary will lust for the beautiful dumb blonde, and she who yearns to be rocked in the arms of Jesus Christ will burn for the blue eyes and white arms of the all-American boy. Here the Lazarus stopped and searched our faces, but our faces were impenetrable masks, and we gave him no sign. He went on. The war going on between the black man and the white man is not the only war. Life is full of little wars, and you fight them all at the same time. You have to have a grand strategy designed to cope with all hostilities. You have to have a style, and if there's someone making war on you, and you don't know it, well, you are in big trouble. You're lost from the go. There is a war going on between the black man and the black woman, which makes her the silent ally, indirectly but effectively, of the white man. The black woman is an unconsenting ally, and she may not even realize it, but the white man sure does. That's why, all down through history, he has propped her up, economically above you and me, to strengthen her hand against us. But the white man is a fool because he is also fighting a war against the white woman. And it doesn't end there. White men have a war going on against each other. The myth of the strong black woman is the other side of the coin of the myth of the beautiful dumb blonde. The white man turned the white woman into a weak-minded, weak-bodied, delicate freak, a sex pot, and placed her on a pedestal. He turned the black woman into a strong, self-reliant Amazon and deposited her in his kitchen. That's the secret of Aunt Jemima's bandana. The white man turned himself into the omnipotent administrator and established himself in the front office. And he turned the black man into the super-masculine menial and kicked him out into the fields. The white man wants to be the brain, and he wants us to be the muscle, the body. All this is tied up together in a crazy way, which was never too clear to me. At one time it seems absolutely clear, and at other times I don't believe in it. It reminds me of two sets of handcuffs that have all four of us tied up together, holding all black and white flesh in a certain mold. That is why, when you get down to the root of it, the white man doesn't want the black man, the black woman, or the white woman to have a higher education. Their enlightenment will pose a threat to his omnipotence. Haven't you ever wondered why the white man genuinely applauds a black man who achieves excellence with his body in the field of sports, while he hates to see a black man achieve excellence with his brain? The mechanics of the myth demand that the brain and the body, like East and West, must never meet, especially in competition on the same level. When it comes to the mechanics of the myth, the brain and the body are mutually exclusive. There can be no true competition between superiors and inferiors. This is why it has been so hard historically for Negroes to break the color bar in sport after sport. Once the color bar falls, the magic evaporates, and when the black man starts to excel in a particular sport, the question starts floating around. Is boxing dying? Is baseball through? What happened to football? What is basketball coming to? In fact, the new symbol of white supremacy is golf, because there the brain dominates the body. But just as soon as the body starts ripping off a few trophies, they will be asking the question, what happened to golf? All this became clear when Joe Louis cleaned out Max Schmeling in their second fight. Schmeling stood for the very thing the white man nursed and worshipped in his own heart, but the whites applauded Joe for crushing Schmeling. Why? Because Joe's victory over Schmeling symbolized the triumph of capitalistic democracy over Nazism. No, there may have been a little of that to it, but on a deeper level, they applauded Joe for the same reason they despised Ingemar Johansson, while rewarding him handsomely for knocking out Floyd Patterson. Joe's victory over Schmeling confirmed, while Floyd's defeat contradicted, the white man's image of the black man as the supermasculine menial, the personification of mindless brute force, the perfect slave. And Sonny Liston, the mindless body, is preferred over loud-mouthed Cassius Clay, because, after all, it takes at least a bird brain to run a loud mouth, and the white man despises even that much brain in a black man. And when Clay, the loud-mouthed clown, abdicates his image as the body and becomes Muhammad Ali, the brain, Whitey can't hold his mud. The white man loves the supermasculine menial. John Henry, the steel-driving man, all body, driven to his knees by the machine, which is the phallus symbol of the brain and the ultimate ideal of the omnipotent administrator. To the white man's way of thinking, this was a perfect system of social imagery. But like all perfect systems, it had a great big flaw right in the middle of it. The omnipotent administrator conceded to the supermasculine menial all of the attributes of masculinity associated with the body: strength, brute power, muscle, even the beauty of the brute body, except one. There was this single attribute of masculinity which he was unwilling to relinquish, even though this particular attribute is the essence and seat of masculinity. Sex, the penis. The black man's penis was the monkey wrench in the white man's perfect machine. The penis virility is of the body. It is not of the brain. The brain is neuter, homo, machine. But in the deal which the white man forced upon the black man was given the body as his domain, while the white man preempted the brain for himself. By and by, the omnipotent administrator discovered that in the fury of his scheming he had blundered and clipped himself of his penis. Notice the puny image the white man has of his own penis. He calls it a prick, a Peter, a pecker. So he reneged on the bargain. He called the super masculine menial back and said, "Look, boy, we have a final little adjustment to make. I'm still going to be the brain and you're still the body. But from now on, you'll do all the flexing, but I'll do all the fucking. The brain must control the body. To prove my omnipotence, I must cuckold you and fetter your bull balls. I will fetter the range of your rod and limit its reach. My prick will excel your rod. I have made a calculation. I will have sexual freedom, but I will bind your rod with my omnipotent will and place a limitation on its aspiration, which you will violate on pain of death. I will have access to the white woman, and I will have access to the black woman. The black woman will have access to you, but she will also have access to me. I forbid you access to the white woman. The white woman will have access to me, the omnipotent administrator, but I deny her access to you. You, the supermasculine menial. By subjecting your manhood to the control of my will, I shall control you. The stem of the body, the penis, must submit to the will of the brain." It was the perfect solution, only it didn't work. It only drove the truth underground. You can't really disassociate the penis from the body. Not even the brain. The omnipotent administrator can do that. But you can seize the body in a rage, in a violent and hateful frustration at this one great flaw in a perfect plan, this monkey wrench in a perfect machine. String the body from the nearest tree and pluck its strange fruit, its big nigger dick. Pickle it in a bottle and take it home to the beautiful dumb blonde, and rejoice in the lie that not the body but the brain is the man. The Lazarus stopped talking and sat there with his mouth hanging open. He was breathing hard, as if he had been running and was out of breath. The eunuch on my left was staring off into space, looking off deliberately rather than allow anyone to see the wild look I knew would be in his eyes. Thought refused to crystallize in my mind. I poured more coffee into my cup, and as I lifted the cup to my lips, I blew softly on the surface of the murky brew to cool it off, and stared over the rim at the infidel, who sat with his face screwed up, biting his ample bottom lip, as if he was trying hard to remember something, or maybe to understand or figure something out. He seemed embarrassed. The eunuch on my right was staring down into his plate of beans. Then the infidel looked up and locked my eyes with his own. A cruel, wounded expression was in his eyes. I could see a pain there that was dreadful. It made me feel fear. Not so much for the infidel as for myself, my generation, my contemporaries, because I was not sure that we knew what to do, or would learn before it was too late, and would be able to escape from feeling that same deep-seated pain someday. Myself, ourselves. It seemed to me in that moment, and I knew that the same thought was running through the minds of my eunuch contemporaries, that any fate, death, the gas chamber, the electric chair, a firing squad, heroin, suicide, anything would be better than to submit to the terrible, horrible pain which the infidel had learned to live with. I felt a hot throbbing in my crotch. Instinctively, and with a taste of panic, I reached down, almost afraid that my rod would be missing. But it was there, and it was erect, and I squeezed it, and it was strong and resilient and firm. When I gave it that squeeze, a wave of strength surged through my body. I felt powerful, and I knew that I would make it if I never betrayed the law of my rod. The infidel smiled, and I was sure he had read my thoughts. He let out a deep breath and sat back in his chair and started talking in a tired voice, almost a monotone. I had a woman once, no, a bitch, who had a hook like Sugar Ray Robinson. I had to knock her out every Saturday night. She'd start an argument and then tee off on me just like a man. How are you supposed to treat a bitch who can't live with you without fighting? She didn't have to be mad at me to start a fight. I experimented with her. I tried all kinds of technique on her. Once I refused to argue with her. I just stood there and looked at her in a way that she knew that I was not mad at her. As if I was saying to her, "Look, baby, it's up to you. Whatever happens will be because you made it happen." Boom! She hit me in the mouth. That was when I realized that she could not accept me as a man unless I acted like the body, exerting physical force over her. I didn't hit her back. I was filled with a rage that I had never felt before or since. Actually, I think I went momentarily insane. I grabbed her by her arm, whipped out my switchblade knife. It had about an 8-inch blade. I opened my knife and made her sit on the sofa. I could see that she thought it was all over for her. Her eyes were big as a cow's, and she was really scared. I shoved the knife into her hand and made her take it. Then I lay down with my arms around her body and with my head in her lap. She was furious. She threatened to cut my jugular vein if I did not get up. I was not my usual self, and I had no intention of getting up. It seemed that if I got up, I would not be able to live another second. That was the feeling I had, that if I got up and let her go or tried to protect myself in any way from the knife, I could not go on living. So I lay there with my jugular vein exposed and the knife, and I went to sleep. At first, she tried to get my head out of her lap. Then she stopped that. Then she started crying. I could feel the sobs racking her body. But I kept my eyes closed and went to sleep. I had no dream or anything. It was a deep, peaceful, sweet sleep. I can still recall the ecstasy of that sleep. I have never in my life experienced such blissful sleep. When I woke up, she was holding my head, cradled in her lap, and she had a beautiful, saintly glow on her face, an expression that was utterly foreign to anything that I had ever seen in her before. Then I remembered the knife, and a great fear came over me. I jumped up and looked around. She had closed up the knife and broken the blade and thrown it across the room on the floor. My stomach trembled as I realized what a big chance I had taken. Anyway, We went along fine for about a month. Our relationship was infused with new life and vitality. During that time, we did not have a single argument. Not a single harsh word passed between us. That granite, that steel, which I hate in a black bitch, was gone. And strangely, I felt myself acting natural, without pretense toward her. It seemed as if we were dancing through those days perfectly in time and in step with each other. Then one day we were out driving, and I ran through a red light just a little too late, and this motorcycle cop pulled me over. "Say, boy," he said to me, "are you colorblind?" I didn't want a ticket, so I decided to talk him out of it. I went into my act, gave him a big smile, and explained to him that I was awfully sorry, that I thought that I could make it, but that my old car was too slow. He talked real bad to me, took me on a long trip about how important it was that I obeyed the laws and regulations, and how else can a society be controlled and administered without obedience to the law. I said a bunch of yes sirs and no sirs, and he told me to run along and be a good boy. When I drove off, I looked over at my woman, and she had turned completely sour. That sweetness of the last month was gone, and I could see the granite and steel in her. When we got home, she tried to start a fight with me, but I refused to respond. Without another word, she packed up all her belongings and split. The bitch cut me clean and loose. I never been cut loose that clean before. She got herself another stud. They used to fight all up and down the streets. That stud used to love to fight her just as much as she loved to fight. They were very happy together. Later on, she killed that cat, shot him down in the street like a dog, and she beat the case in court. They called it justifiable homicide. Then the bitch changed her name and started singing professionally. She made it real big. Her name and picture was in all the magazines and newspapers. I used to go check her performances in nightclubs. She was great. She made a lot of big money. Then guess what she did? She married a white man. The cat was a blank, a tramp. He didn't have anything going for himself. He didn't have a quarter when he married her. She gave him all of her money. He ran through her bank account. He bought himself a big fancy nightclub. Then he divorced her. She lost her touch after that and started slipping down, down, down. Her earning power shrank to nothing. She hung the whole life up and started singing church music, spirituals. She joined a church, became real religious. Everybody said she fell in love with Jesus and that in him she finally found her righteous man. That's where she is right now, in that church. Ever since then, I always believed that marrying a white man to a black woman is like adding the final star to her crown. It's the apex of achievement in her eyes, and in the eyes of her sisters. Look at how many famous black celebrities marry white men. All of the Negro women who are not celebrities wish they were so that they too could marry white men. Whitey is their dream boy. When they kiss you, it ain't really you they're kissing. They close their eyes and picture their white dream boy. Listen to the grapevine. Jesus Christ, the pure, is the black woman's psychic bridegroom. You will learn before you die that during coition and at the moment of her orgasm, the black woman in the first throes of her spasm shouts out the name of Jesus. "Oh Jesus, I'm coming," she shouts to him, and to you it will hurt. It will be like a knife in your heart. It will be the same as if your woman, during orgasm, calls out the name of some sneaky cat who lives down the block. Now there is one thing I want to tell you that is directly related to this. To be sure, I have never understood it, and I don't believe that I ever will. But I have seen it work, and it may be that you brothers can understand it, and it may prove useful to you. It may help you to make it. There is a sickness in the whites that lies at the core of their madness, and this sickness makes them act in many different ways. But there is one way it makes some of them act that seems to contradict everything we know about Whitey, and shakes many blacks up when they first encounter it. There are white men who will pay you to fuck their wives. They approach you and say, "How would you like to fuck a white woman?" "What is this?" you ask. "On the up and up," he assures you. "It's all right. She's my wife. She needs black rod. That's all. She has to have it. It's like a medicine or drug to her. She has to have it. I'll pay you. It's all on the level. No trick involved. Interested?" You go with him and he drives you to their home. The three of you go into the bedroom. There is a certain type who will leave you and his wife alone and tell you to pile her real good. After it is all over, he will pay you and drive you to wherever you want to go. Then there are some who like to peep at you through a keyhole and watch you have his woman, or peep at you through a window, or lie under the bed and listen to the creaking of the bed as you work out. There is another type who likes to masturbate while he stands beside the bed and watches you pile her. There is a type who likes to eat his woman up after you get through piling her. And there is the type who only wants you to pile her for a little while, just long enough to thaw her out and kick her motor over and arouse her to heat. Then he wants you to jump off real quick and he will jump onto her, and together they can make it from there by themselves. It did not occur to me to say anything. I didn't know what to say. I was angry at the infidel and repulsed by his monologue and the importance he seemed to attach to these matters. My dreams lay elsewhere, and I could not begin to evaluate the things he had been talking about. I sat there, savoring the strange quality of the emotion which had been aroused within me. I don't know when the eunuch on my left started to speak. First, I became aware of his voice, a sound purely, a nebulous, incoherent sound, and only later did I begin to distinguish the words. "Fed up with it, you old Lazarus. Everything you said was twisted. It was all dead and stinking. It was all warped and out of joint. It was off cue, off center." The eunuch had his jaw set defiantly. "Yes, I know," said the infidel, "and you young bloods see a big chance coming up to change all of that. Every man with a pipe dream sees his chance is just coming. But even so, you have to admit that the white man is a bitch with his shit. Did he clean us out or not, huh? Did he take care of business?" "He took care of so much business that it got good to him. And he got carried away and cleaned everybody out, including himself. Now ain't that a motherfucking shame?" The infidel looked from one to the other of us. No one replied to him. We just stared at him, at his face, his eyes, his smooth chocolate skin. Then he broke out laughing until his obese frame shook. There was no telling what he was laughing at. It was coming from deep inside him, but his face looked pained, as if he were not enjoying his laugh. Several times he tried to say something, but each time he was overcome by laughter. Finally he blurted out, "You got to give the devil his due," and went into another spasm of chuckles and grunts. When the laughter died, he began drumming on the table with his short, fat fingers. "I had a very close friend once," he said. "We grew up together. Never mind where. He was the best friend I ever had, closer than a brother. We were tighter than fish pussy, and that's waterproof. When we were just kids, we took a blood brother oath, like Indian braves, just me and him. We made a pact to be lifelong comrades." His mind drifted for a moment. Tiny drops of perspiration stood out on his forehead. "But something happened and I went away. I didn't see or hear of him for many, many years. Then finally I went back to that place. I had to see the old hometown once more. I decided to look up my old friend. After searching for him, it turned out that he was in an institution, a mental institution. He had been there ever since, for all those years. So I went to see him. He had changed completely. So much that I don't believe I would have recognized him if it were not for his eyes. I never forget those eyes, never. He had eyes like they say Jomo Kenyatta has, like look right through a brick wall." The infidel lifted his hand and pointed at the eunuch on my left. "My friend had his eyes, only more so, just like this brother here," he said. An embarrassed, frightened look showed on his face for a moment, which he quickly suppressed. The eunuch on my left shifted out in his chair. "But he recognized me, my friend did," said the infidel. "Immediately he knew who I was. He didn't have to pull me from his memory, as you think he would have after all these years. The minute they brought him into the visiting room, I could see that he recognized me, though he didn't call my name. We sat down at a little table, and he said to me, 'Ah, I thought you would never get here. Now we can embark on our great enterprise. We will transform the whole of proud Europe into an international whorehouse, and men from all over the earth will make their pilgrimage there and fertilize the depleted human soil with their rich and varied seed.' I said nothing to him. Couldn't say anything. I just listened. He talked on and on. He took me back. Then it was time for me to go. I promised him I'd be back the next day. They led him away. I never went back. Even as I promised him, I knew I would never return. Never." The infidel paused, swallowed. He was struggling with himself, fighting to keep under control something powerful, torrential within himself. You could feel the terrible force of the agony raging inside him. "He died 2 weeks later, my friend did, from self-inflicted wounds, from banging his own head against a jagged edge of a concrete wall." For many minutes no one spoke. Each was submerged in thoughts of his own. Finally, the eunuch on my left, in a cold, icy tone, said, "You dirty Lazarus, you killed him. You murdered him. You betrayed him." The infidel made as if to reply, but the effort died. The eunuch on my left said to the infidel, "Your trouble, old Lazarus, is that you can't stand the sight of the slave master's blood." The infidel looked surprised. "The world," he said slowly, "cannot stand another bloodbath." "The world is hemophiliac," retorted the eunuch. "Look at it. When did the world ever stop bleeding? It never has, for a moment, ceased to bleed. It's bleeding somewhere right this very moment. Right now as we sit here talking. Somewhere is taking careful aim at someone else, at an enemy. Someone is thrusting with a blade at an enemy. Someone is lighting a fuse at an enemy. In Africa, Asia, Europe, South America, and right here in the good old USA, blood is flowing. Go listen to the radio or TV right now, and the first news you catch will be of blood, a count of the bodies. Go pick up a newspaper or magazine, and it will be dripping with blood. Blood flows from the TV screen, so why does it shock you to hear of blood? Yes, the world is bleeding, said the infidel, but it's bleeding to death. How much longer can it last? He shuddered at his own question. Blood is a lubricant, said the eunuch on my left. It smooths the way and enables a people to slip out of the tightest of clutches. You don't tinker with the logjam, man. You dynamite it. You are thirsty for blood, said the infidel, speaking directly to the eunuch on my left. But it won't do. Yes, replied the eunuch, I'm thirsty for blood, white man's blood. And when I drink, I want to drink deeply, because I have a deep thirst to quench. I want to drink for every black man, woman, and child dragged to the slaughter from the shores of Africa, for every one of my brothers and sisters who suffered helplessly in the rotten holds of the damned slave ships, for your friend who bashed his own brains out in that nut house. I want to drink the white man's blood for every ounce of my flesh and blood that he crushed and broke in the Caribbean islands, for all the souls of black folk mangled in the fetid fields of the Old South, and for everyone slaughtered and lynched in the mire of the New South, and in the north, east, and west of the hells of North America. Only the white man's blood can wash away the pain I feel. You shrink from shedding the white man's blood, you old Lazarus. But I say to you that the day is here when I will march into the Mississippi legislature with a blazing machine gun in my hands and a pocket full of grenades. Since I will be going to die, I definitely will be going to kill. No, said the infidel. No, more blood will only add crime upon crime. No. He suddenly stood up from the table, looked at each of us as if to plead like a criminal before a jury he knows is about to send him to the death chamber. He breathed deeply, as he had done earlier, and let his shoulders sag. Blood upon blood, crime upon crime, brick of blood upon brick of blood of a new mad Tower of Babel, which too will fall. There can be no triumph in blood. Then he turned and faltered slowly away from the table. We watched him walk away. He stopped and looked back at us, as if he half expected, half hoped for us to call him back. Then he turned and faded from our sight, from our lives.